बहुत ही ब्यूटीफुल सेक्शन है. Yes, I will take you, if you kindly open it. Uh, yeah, just open it. I will just see. When facts not otherwise relevant become relevant. See, section 5 and 6 tells you, section 5, you are allowed to lead evidence only with respect to fact in issue and relevant fact. And what are relevant fact are dealt only between section 5 and 55. Now, this section is a departure to section 5, which tells you that you are allowed to lead evidence even with regard to facts which are neither in issue and facts which are not relevant. Ab Sanjana, the scope of the act section is so wide in the both in the civil and criminal cases. You can lead evidence in respect of issues which are not framed, and you can lead evidence in respect mean contradictory evidence, mean inconsistent evidence, and you can also lead evidence with respect to facts which are relevant, but you are not permitted to lead it, which are not otherwise relevant. Now that is the scenario, and if you understand the section and the illustration and some of the judgments which I'll give you, Farafat, because I intend to cover at least 15, 16, section 16 तक cover करेंगे. ले लिया. Yeah, when facts are not otherwise relevant become relevant. Facts not otherwise relevant are relevant if
So
they
by
are
using this section, we can say anything we want because if it is
anything. Suppose, for example, the prosecution say you have committed the murder of A. They are leading evidence. Are you are leading evidence? Are I was not in the city of Bombay. Are I was in Dubai. You are leading evidence by train ka ticket, plane ka ticket, Dubai ka ticket, immigration, which is not relevant. It is inconsistent, isn't it? That
yes,
evidence
sir.
is totally inconsistent to prove that I was not in Mumbai, I was in Dubai. So your Dubai ka evidence is totally inconsistent with the earlier fact. So how you are allowed to lead it, we'll see that here. Let us see. Hmm. Yeah, fact otherwise relevant are relevant. Facts not otherwise relevant. So the fact you are in Dubai is not relevant. Now how it become relevant, we'll see. If there are inconsistent with any other fact in issue or relevant fact. Number two, this is one thing. So mean you are allowed to lead evidence. You are allowed to lead evidence in respect of facts which are not relevant. But if they are inconsistent, you can lead it. Even if they are inconsistent, normally in the eyes of law, you are not permitted with this. They may be also be called collateral evidence. I'll come to know that here. Number two, if by themselves or in connection with other fact, they make the existence or non-existent of any fact in issue relevant, fact highly probable or improbable. So you are allowed to lead inconsistent evidence in respect of fact which otherwise may be relevant or may not be, which may be in fact an issue. You can lead a contrary evidence provided it is probable or highly improbable. Because under section 3 of the interpretation of the Evidence Act, you learn what is the definition of proved, disproved, and not proved. When you are proving a particular fact, the court will consider the matters before it, whether whether it is probable or not. Whether it consider the existence probable and not proved, disproved के अंदर you are also the court consider the matters before it to consider the matters whether it believes it does exist or not exists, considering the matters before. So that section also comes into play here. Now you will be able to understand this section 11 with the help of this illustration. Then some of the judgment which I'll give you. Number one, illustration. The question is whether A committed a crime at Calcutta on a certain day. So that is the fact in issue before the court. So somebody A has committed a crime. It may be a murder, it may be robbery, it may be bigamy, it may be anything else. It's a crime is committed. The fact that near the time when the crime was committed, A was at a distance from the place where it was committed, which would render it highly improbable, though not impossible, that he committed it is relevant. So here the issue before the court of law is that here A has committed a crime at Lahore. Lahore, which is now in Pakistan, which was formerly united part of India, undivided part of India. So A will take up the plea, my lord. I am being the prosecution tells me that I have committed the offense in Lahore, but at the relevant time, at the given time, which is FIR, I was in Mumbai. So you are allowed to lead evidence which is totally inconsistent to the fact in issue. So the fact in issue is the prosecution cannot dictate to you, lead only evidence in Lahore. You cannot lead evidence of Mumbai, Calcutta, Madras. No, they cannot stop you. Your scope of the cross-examination is very wide. Please note that to bring before the court of law that this is called a plea of alibi in French. Alibi means elsewhere. I was not there at the time of the commission of the offense at Lahore at the given time. You tell me that I was at Colaba at the time of the commission of the crime. I was in fact at Borivali at the particular time. I can prove this. I was attending a marriage. I was attending a function. So it is an inconsistent, contradictory evidence which you are allowed to lead, which prove that this evidence is not in conformity with the fact in issue. Normally, you have been told that here, when you present a case before the court of law, your examination chief should be in conformity with the issues and the pleadings. That is the examination chief. But the cross-examination can take a departure. So these questions become relevant in cross-examination. But having said suppose if you are a plaintiff or you are a complainant, having told the court earlier before the court in suppose esplanade court, the crime has been committed by A against me in Colaba, then examination chief he cannot take up the plea. Sorry, my lord, I mentioned wrongly in the FIR that the crime took place in Colaba. Then no, the crime took place in Malabar Hill. Then the case itself goes away. That means the prosecution or the plaintiff or the complainant cannot be permitted to resile from the previous statement. It is the privilege of the defense. It is the privilege of the defendant to ask this inconsistent question. The questions which are totally contradictory to your case. To prove you wrong. That is how it is. So when the prosecution says that the crime has been committed in Lahore, you lead evidence. No, I was not in Lahore on the 1st of January 1940. I was in Bombay. I can prove that. You can prove from the fact that you attended a marriage. You had a plane ticket or railway ticket to prove that. If you substantiate that, you are out of it. So you have successfully proved the plea of alibi. That is one. So that is why you are allowed to lead an inconsistent evidence with regard to fact in issue. So the fact in issue goes here. Number 2, illustration 2. The question is whether A committed a crime. The circumstances are such that the crime must have been committed either by A, B or C. So it is all, the court is considering matters before it, that it is probable that crime has been committed either by A, B or C. ये तीनों के अलावा कोई और नहीं. Why? Because these 3 persons only were in the prison or maybe in the room along with the deceased. और डी A, B, C और D, ये चारों के अलावा कोई आदमी बाहर का आदमी नहीं आया इधर. Then every fact will show that the crime could have been committed by no one else and that it was not committed by either B, C, D is relevant. That means these gentlemen B, C, D can lead evidence that they are not involved in it. They must have gone for a stroll. They must have gone for a toilet. They must in the library. That means the crime is committed by A. समझे ना आप? So they are leading evidence to the contrary. It is highly probable. It is highly improbable, my lord. The offense of the time we were in prison, all 3 of us, A, B, C, D, in one prison. So A, B, C, D, E का death हो गया. So either A has killed, B का kill, C or D. So here successfully B, C, D have led evidence before the court to show that B at the relevant time was in the library. He had signed the muster and reading. C was gardening. D was had gone for cooking as per the rules of the prison. So the only person who could have committed involved in murder is A. That is how they are discharging. The court will say, having regard to the matters before it. What is the matter? The matter before the court that B has successfully proved before the court, he had gone gardening. B had proved before the court that he was in the laundry. C had proved the court that he was with the jailer doing jail activities. So in such a scenario, the crime is committed, but it is highly probable. It is highly probable that the offense has been committed only by A. So this is how the evidence to the converse. Now, the analysis of the section, I'll tell you. Section 11 contains two clauses. Number one, the first clause lays down that which are inconsistent with facts in issue are relevant. When facts which are inconsistent with the fact in issue are relevant, facts are relevant. So normally they are, even the inconsistent facts, they become irrelevant to the fact in issue. Then under the second clause, the facts with themselves or in connection with the other facts make the existent, non-existent of any fact in issue or relevant fact highly improbable or improbable or relevant. That I gave it to you. Now we will take up now this fact number one, facts consistent with any of the fact in issue relevant fact. Now one fact is said to be connected with the other fact when it cannot coexist with the other fact. Let us take for example, the question is whether committed the crime at Calcutta on a certain day. Okay. The fact that A was at Lahore on that day is relevant as they cannot coexist. So they cannot coexist together. So the allegation is that the offense is committed at Calcutta and he takes up the plea of Lahore. So these two facts are totally mutually destructive to each other. Then the second is A is an illiterate person is a fact in issue. A is illiterate. Then similarly, A wrote a defamatory letter damaging the family of B is another fact. So A is an illiterate man. There is an allegation against him that A wrote a defamatory letter to B damaging his family or indulging in a campaign of vilification, abusing him. So he allegedly wrote. But an illiterate person can't write a letter. The best fact is he can't. Now these two facts are inconsistent with each other. So the man A being illiterate, then A writing a letter to B, it is not conceivable, isn't it? They are inconsistent hypotheses, both of them. In such a way, they cannot coexist together. So they are different together. The fact in issue is A and evidence sought to be led is B here. Then A is a illiterate. He cannot write a letter vis-a-vis. If he can write an article, he cannot be illiterate person. So if the prosecution can prove that here, my lord, let him come in the box, ask him to write it. If they are able to prove that letter, then they will succeed. But if at the same time defense says that he is an illiterate person, he cannot read evidence, he has not gone to school, not gone to college, and he has not learned any languages, then that evidence is allowed on the part of the defense, which is totally inconsistent to that. Therefore, A is charged with writing defamatory article B. So A is illiterate. So under section 11, this particular becomes evidence admissible. Yeah. Anybody want to ask it before I take to next alibi picture? Then there is also an alibi, that is alibi. Then there is a non-access to husband to show that the illegitimacy of a child.
So I have a question. Even if a person's alibi is verified, wouldn't it mean that supposing if a person was in Mumbai, he could have ordered a crime to be done in Delhi? So
Hmm.
how would proof be taken in that case that he has an alibi? He was in Mumbai when the crime was taking place in Delhi.
Hmm.
So how would you file charges against this person?
See, sometimes charges are concocted. People lodge a false FIR to teach a lesson. Sometimes there's a mistaken identity also it happened. It happens in many cases. There are many times it happened. Prosecution also hush up the case. There are many matters which have gone to the court of law in this regard. Like take for example, I'll give you a couple of examples how the alibi was proved and how the alibi could not be proved. Yes. So when a person takes up the plea alibi, then the burden will shift upon him under section 103 of the 103 of the Evidence Act. Open 103, burden of proof. Normally, the prosecution has to prove the case. After prosecution finishing, if the accused takes up the plea he was elsewhere, then the burden will shift upon him under section 103. Burden has to prove as to particular fact. The burden of proof as to any particular fact on the person who wishes the court to believe that in his existence, unless provided by law that the proof of the fact shall lie on the person. So here, the prosecution witness takes up the plea. I was in Mumbai, as he said that. He has to lead evidence of being in Mumbai. For example, wherever he will take up the plea that year. I was attending a lecture in Government Law College. That isn't it? At that particular time, you may examine your professor. You may examine your co-friends. You may examine the fact that you have signed the college entry form. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
These are all things which you can prove the court. Under 103 of the Evidence Act, the burden is upon you in the matter here. Then one such matter which went to, I will take the famous case of the Nirbhai murder case, for example, where alibi could not be produced by the Mukesh Kumar. That is just if you can open, or even if you don't open, I'll give it to you. That is AIR 2017 Supreme Court 1217 Mukesh versus State of NCT. That is a matter which went to Supreme Court. In that, it's a gang rape case of a Delhi unfortunate case of a Nirbhai murder case. The accused took up the plea that he was attending a musical program at a park in Delhi on the day of the incident when the rape took place, the unfortunate rape of the girl with so many people. The plea of alibi contradicted against the evidence of injured informant. The injured informant and the dying declaration of the prosecution. So Nirbhai's boyfriend gave evidence in that matter. So that is how the incident took place. Then declaration of DNA, the DA analysis was also examined. Fingerprints for analysis. Then there was evidence of the park authorities. Revealed that no permission was granted to any person on that day. There was no musical program. So the prosecution successfully demolished the false plea raised by the accused Mukesh that he was not involved in the rape and he should be let off, and that plea was demolished. He could not prove before the court of law. Samjana? In another case was which went to Supreme Court was which I'll tell you, Brijlal Prasad Sinha versus State of Bihar.
Sir, in that Nirbhaya case,
And
sir, it was the evidence was overwhelming, yet it took so long, sir. Why?
because there are so many witnesses, you cannot blame the prosecution. See, ours is a Anglo-Saxon trial case. You have to prove, examine witnesses, getting documents. It takes time. Our courts are overburdened. Unless we change the
Sir, but
system
in
of
the
the
bus, sir, only the culprits and the victim. There were no witnesses, sir.
no, the witnesses meant the recording of the court has examined many people there. There are several witnesses. You see
Yes,
that
sir.
here. The park people who examined, DNA people who examined, police officers who examined, several witnesses in that. There are more than 37 witnesses in that case. You read that judgment, it's a very unfortunate case. It takes time because you cannot blame. Our judges are also overburdened and there are less judges, less court. They are doing a marvelous job. It is not that they are sitting tight. But given the fact that there is a less time, there are less requirement, less what do you call it? Mm, many courtrooms are not functioning. Summoning a witness and getting document is not so easy. It takes time.
Sir,
It's a cumbersome procedure, conducting a trial. When you
sir,
become a lawyer, you come to know the practical difficulties.
yes,
The
sir.
accused is languishing in jail, and they are not brought unless he's brought and trial doesn't commences. Many things are there. Mm.
Sir, is it allowed to speed up the case, that you don't, as a prosecution person, as a prosecution counsel, you don't call in certain witnesses because you know that the case is already watertight without those witnesses?
See, the public prosecutor will decide as to who should be examined to prove the case. That is left to him. The court will not dictate to him. It is the public prosecutor who decides.
And sir, he can choose to exclude witnesses to
Yeah,
expedite the
he may
trial.
choose to exclude, but he should examine material witnesses. He has to examine material witnesses such as first informer, the people who gave statement under section 161, 162, they should be examined. And people who gave a statement under 164 will be examined. There will be forensic record, DNA records. Then there will be record of the people who gave evidence with regard to the fingerprints analysis authority and many things. Direct witnesses, indirect witnesses, constable, police officer who were involved in the crime, and panchas who were involved in the matter, before whom the seal recovery took place, doctor who gave the report, medical condition, huh? The chemical analysis who gave the report. ये सब चीजें हैं ना. You come to know, if you just go
Yes, sir.
through one particular matter, you come to know how many witnesses examined. So it is not proper to blame the court or the prosecution, but our system is like that. Ours is a Anglo-Saxon trial, that every person is presumed to be innocent unless he's tried, convicted by the court of law. So it is better that you let off 10 innocent people rather than convicting one innocent man. Isn't it? That is how
Yes.
the concept is. Now, another case is Brijlal Prasad Sinha versus State of Bihar. That is AIR 1998 Supreme Court, page number 2443. Here, this was a case, encounter case from Bihar. This was the police encounter took up the plea that we had to shoot the accused person because they shot back. हमने गोली चलाई वो because वो भी चला है. Now, that is how the contention was taken up. Then the court examined the ballistic report expert to show that the pistol found near the dead person or the accused person was never used. And it was a defective one. So the contention of the police officer who shot, in self-defense, the shot was nullified. So they tried to take evidence under section 11, subclause 2 के अंदर लेने के लिए. They were trying to lead evidence by themselves connecting with the other fact, making the existent, non-existent, highly probable, improbable. So the court did not believe it here. Okay, that is how the section 11 goes with here, highly probable. Then the cases with regard to non-accessibility of the husband to show the illegitimacy of the child. You know that under the provisions of section 112 of the Evidence Act, हमने पढ़ चुके ना? Just open करो 112. When it is a conclusive evidence, birth of a child who was born within 280 days. 112 पढ़ी आपने?
Open, sir.
That we have read it earlier. I won't much it. Here, that is the presumption that if the child is born within 112 days, 280 days, and showing that after separation and the mother remain unmarried, that is conclusive. But the husband has a right to show that I never had access to my wife. The wife may be in Bombay or Calcutta. I was in Dubai for about 2 years. I was serving. Immediately after marriage, I did not turn up only. But how this is not my child? समझे ना आप? So he can lead evidence. Highly is impossible. So the prosecution case, the complainant case that the child was his can be disproved by this, by leading evidence. That is called non-access of the husband to show legitimacy of the issue. Uh, then uh, then uh, then of course I showed you Bijlal's case. Anybody wants to ask you this question? Then recitals are shown in deeds and all to
So,
show that,
so
yeah.
for that Brijlal case and for all encounter cases, is it always that it's a fake encounters are mostly, and what is the best way for the prosecution to go about it, sir?
Yeah, the fake encounter cases unfortunately were, you know, the police, that is the police takes up the plea before the court of law that the encounter was genuine. It was a self-defense, but you can prove before the court of law by leading evidence that here. So like was done in the case of Brijlal's case, that the other side came to shoot us and we had to shoot him. So fortunately, there was evidence before the court that such a thing never happened. That was shown that here, Brijlal can, the prosecution can show clearly before the court here, at the time when the offense took place. Uh, the offense of murder took place here. Uh, the pistol was deactivated. It was not used. It was intact. That means the police has committed a culpable act of a homicide by killing a person directly. So the plea taken by the police that they came to attack the assailant came to attack them is highly improbable, because the gun which was in the possession of the accused person was deactivated, and there were no goalies inside. So how the crime could have been committed? So the plea of alibi was disproved here. Okay, that is section 11.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now come to section 12. Section 12 में आ जाइए. Yeah, in a suit for damages, facts tending to enable the court to determine the amount is relevant. So in a suit for damages under the Indian Contract Act, section 73, there's a breach of contract. The breach of contract, section 73, is well founded on the famous judgment of Hadley versus Baxendale. All of you studied in the first year. पढ़े ना आपने? Hadley versus Baxendale? पढ़े नहीं पढ़े?
नहीं sir.
नहीं पढ़े. Hadley versus Baxendale is a famous judgment on the points of breach of promise, breach of contract, under which Mr. Hadley was running a mill. It's a उसका rice का mill था उधर. Rice के mill में उसका crankshaft, the crankshaft of the mill broke down. Then he broke down, as a result whereof his mill came to a standstill. Then he requested the company, manufacturing company, Louis company, unko request kiya, you please get it repaired. So that company said, you have to send it to my factory. We have to see it, and accordingly we have to dimension. So this gentleman, Hadley, gave it to the defendant. The defendant was a carrier, as a carrier who was supposed to deliver within 2 days. Instead of delivering in 2 days, he took it 7 days. 7 days Hadley suffered losses. A breach of my mill was closed down. As a result, I suffered damages, and you should pay for it. So the jury granted him $25 damages, but the appellate court reversed it, because the Hadley had not communicated to him the kind of hardship he is going to face if the crankshaft was not repaired immediately. So what are the yardstick applicable in cases of grant of damages? That section 73 पढ़ चुके हैं आपने, नहीं पढ़े तो please go home and read section 73 of the Indian Contract Act, and also check on your Google में मिलेगा आपको Hadley versus Baxendale's case. Write it down. Hadley versus is a very old English judgment, which is reported, I don't know, it is very old judgment of 1854. Contract Act, I'm sure Our senior professor Pitawala must have taught you this. How many
Sir,
of you?
we didn't have Pitawala sir for our contracts.
Professor Pitawala normally teaches the subjects, and he makes it very interesting teaching and all. And if you never had him, it's very unfortunate. ठीक है, no problem. It is not too late. You go home and read it. And net के ऊपर भी है ये, हाँ? Hadley versus Baxter. So section 12 के अंदर you are allowed to lead evidence with regard to what should be the amount of damages, isn't it? Now, some of the civil cases may whether the breach of contract, but the builder has not delivered you flat, he has sold it to third parties, creating third party interest. So you are filing a suit for claiming damages under the agreement. So remote damages you cannot claim. What evidence you are required to lead under section 12? Section 12 permits you all types of evidence with regard to claiming damages. Okay, and the court can only grant damages with regard to not remote one, which are supposed to be closer one. Approximate and not proximate. That is the factor before the court. So this section, according to me, is redundant, in the sense unnecessary. This is a basic, simple formula. There's a breach of contract, you are permitted to lead evidence. You are permitted to lead evidence, you suffered injury, you suffered damages, you are booked a flat, he has not given you. So section 12 of the Evidence Act permits you to determine the amount of damages, whether you should be given special damages or general damages. So you read section 12 along with section 73 of the Indian Contract Act, please. Okay. Yeah. Section 13 mein aa jaiye.
Yes, sir.
Now, facts relevant when right or custom is in question, where the question is as to existence of right or custom, the following facts are relevant. Number one, any transaction by which right or custom in question was created, claimed or modified, recognized, asserted, denied, or which was inconsistent with the existence. B, particular instances in which a right or custom was claimed, recognized, exercised, or which is exercised was disputed, asserted, or departed. Now, section 13 is a section. For example, you are claiming a right of ownership. What documents you are required to? You are filing a suit for declaration before the court of law. I am the owner of the property. That you have to prove before the court of law. There is an agreement of sale or a sale deed in your favor, or it's your grandfather's property, a right of inheritance you have to show. You are the only person, you are excluding others, or a will is in your favor. So you are asserting right of ownership. Then if you are proving before the court of law for a declaration that I am a tenant of the premises, I cannot be dispossessed without due process of law. What you are required to prove before the court of law? The tenancy agreement. If no tenancy agreement, rent agreement, or your possession before the court of law for how many days, and you have been paying, you have been paying rent for some time immemorial. Your election ration card in the city of Mumbai to show continuous possession, consideration under the provisions of section 105 TP Act, you have to show. So these are the evidence which can be which you can prove before the court of law. Right of subtenancy proving before the court of law that your occupation was prior to 1273 under the rent control legislation. You are a deemed tenant. You cannot be dispossessed by the tenant or landlord without due process of law. For deemed tenancy, the relevant date fixed by the legislature, you prove before the court of law. You may take up the plea that here I have a right in the premises as a right of prescription under section 20 of the Easement Act. So you should have been a person using the premises for more than 20 years. So document dikhaiye court of law. So you are a person claiming possession by adverse possession. I mean, the true owner has not bothered to file a suit, recover possession for more than 12 years. Under section 27 of the Limitation Act, if the owner of the property neglected you and the trespasser is in possession for several years, for more than 12 years, the trespasser under section 65 of the Limitation Act, he can claim adversely. So for adverse possession, what will you prove? Number one, your possession for continuous possession for more than 12 years. Number one, that you have been paying taxes to the government, maybe in the name of the true owner. The true owner never bothered, and you lead evidence that your possession is a hostile one. You came and occupied the premises without the consent of the true owner. So these are the evidence which you are required to lead under Section 7 to prove a particular right. So these are the right. Now next is you are proving a custom. Under the Indian, various Indian laws, there are certain customs. Now under the HAMA Act, HAMA, Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, a child below the age of 7 or 15 years cannot be adopted. But you may lead evidence in certain communities. There's a custom even after the age of 15, 16, 17, till 20 we are adopted. So you can lead evidence. You can lead evidence whom? Not your own evidence. Evidence of particularly elderly people. The maybe 100-year-old man, 50-year-old man, 90-year-old man, your Gram Panchayat gentleman. That evidence can be led by examining certain expert under Section 48. 48 खोलिए जरा for custom के लिए Section 48 खोलिए. See, opinion as to existence of a right or custom when relevant. Okay? When the court has to form an opinion as to existence of any general custom or right, the opinion as to existence of such a custom, right of a person, who would be likely to know the existence, if existence are relevant. So elderly person would be able to tell you, you are a child of 25-year-old, whether you are adopted or not. So the plaintiff has filed a suit for declaration that you are not the son and he is a brother of the deceased and he is entitled to property under the Succession Act. So you would take up the plea that no, he had adopted me. My adoption took place pursuant to the Hindu law. Though he will take up the plea after the age of 15, 16, there is no adoption. You will lead a custom. In the community of the deceased, there was a custom. So you may examine a Grama Panchayat. You may examine the elderly person. You may examine the school record, headmaster, to show that in the school record that my father, the adopted father, had mentioned his name in the application and my name, and to prove that I was his son. Isn't it? You are allowed to lead evidence here. This is coming under Section 48. Section 13 has to be read with Section 48. And also for the purpose of proving, for example, easementary right. In the city of Mumbai, in Indian city, there are lots of temples. There are lots of churches. There are lots of mosques and dargahs in private properties. Every year there are some celebration take place. Ram Janma Bhoomi ho gaya. Your property, my property is situated. And hundreds of thousands of people coming and doing puja. And you cannot stop it. For time immemorial, for 100 years, the villagers have been performing puja using your property and my property. So they have a easementary right to come and go and worship. It is customary for the people of the village. So that you cannot stop it. If you seek to stop it, that custom and easementary right can be established by examining the old people. So in every nook and corner in the city of Bombay, you see that there are temple, churches, and there are dargahs where people throng. The people go everywhere. It may be your private property. In the private property, there are lots of saints are buried. Isn't it? That is very common in this knowledge. So any person wants to establish a particular legal right, maybe by way of a custom, easementary right, right to come and go, right to use the land for egress and egress can be proved invoking Section 13 and Section 48. Anybody has any doubt? समझ में आ गया?
So automatically, if you get ingress and egress, do you get an easement right?
Yes. Now see the illustration. The question is, then usme A and B I will take it up. Any transaction by which a right or custom was created, claim was inconsistent, irrelevant. Then particular instances in which a right or custom was claimed, recognized, disputed, asserted is also can be used. Illustration will make it clear. The question is whether A has a right to a fishery, a deed conferring the fishery on A's ancestors, a mortgage of the fishery by B's father, A subsequent grant of fishery by A's father, irreconcilable by the mortgage, particular instance in which A's father exercised the right or in which exercise the right was estopped by neighbors are relevant fact. So यहाँ पे the A had a right to fishery. So in the city of Mumbai, which is an island city, many fishermen go and do fishing here. So there is a deed here between A's, there's a mortgage deed between the father of A and his mortgagee. Huh? अगर mortgage कर दिया है, contention will be raised by the mortgagee. Your mortgagee has no right to use it. This particular water belongs to me. I only has a right to fishing. तुम्हारे father ने mortgage करके गया है. So the children cannot come and do it up here. Huh? Then subsequent grant of fisheries, A's father irreconcilable mortgage, particular instances. Then certain people will have an easementary right. The local neighbors. The local neighbors may be contrary to the deed. They may be fishing together in the local pond. So those evidence which may be contrary or which may be establishing a particular custom, a right may be asserted or denied, can be allowed here in this matter. So all right title interests, whether it is a ownership right, whether it's a tenancy right, subtenancy right, or a right of mortgagee, mortgage right, whether it's a right of redemption or whether it's a right of foreclosure, whether it's a license right, whether a person is a deemed licensee, a gratuitous licensee, whether a particular custom is existing in a particular community or not. So all this can be proved invoking section 13 and section 48. Pucho, any question? This is now clear?
Yes, sir. There are no exceptions, right, sir? The moment you get ingress and egress, you get right of easement.
The moment you
get ingress and egress authority, you get right of easement.
Yeah, that is you have to use it for a particular period, na? Section 20 and a prescription,
Yes.
right
Yes,
of
sir.
prescription and all. So for
Yes,
it
sir.
up, if you have been using for the donkeys here immemorial, in the city of Bombay, people hold fair, क्या नाम है, Mount Mary का fair चलाते हैं सालों से.
Yes, sir.
Kumbh Mela is taking place for centuries. So the private owners of the land cannot take objection, you cannot hold it. Isn't it? It
Yes,
has
sir.
been going on from time immemorial, thousands of years, hundreds of years. Mount Mary का मेला चलता है यहाँ पे. मखदूम साहब बादशाह का in Mahim में there is a urs take place here. People participate, people go and people sell everything. They visit, and even Vaishnava Devi temples, all these religious places, worshipping people, many activities take place. It is customary to hold such things. So such customs are established. So the court of law, it is not only the legislation passed by the parliament. It is not the substantive law and procedural law the court takes into consideration. The court will also take into consideration the customs and usages in the community. They also have the force of law. समझे ना आप? See, you when you see the provisions of many of the legislation, customs and usages has been used everywhere in many legislation. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So
Yes.
If a flat is vacated, you have to first offer it to the government.
If the flat is
vacated, you have to first offer it to the government.
why? Who tell you that?
They said that is under the Bombay Tenancy Act that if there is a thing is you have to first give it.
Under the Bombay Tenant Maharashtra Rent Control Act.
Yeah.
If the tenant if the tenant dies without leaving heirs and legal representatives, then of course the landlord property landlord will take it back. Otherwise, the government also will step into picture on the basis of doctrine of bona vacantia under Article 296. It is, if I am not mistaken. Just see the Constitution of India, Article 296. Yes. Doctrine of escheat and bona vacantia. Article 296 पढ़ चुके हैं आप. So if there are no heirs and legal representatives, the property will go back to the government, especially ownership property. Especially ownership property will go back to the government. Crown. Article 296 of the Constitution is clean in that regard. Okay. What is the time, Ashish, now?
Sir, it's 6:50.
The
6:50, almost 7, sir.
6:50. Now we can take a break and shall I can continue other section immediately?
Yes, sir, we can take a break, sir.
एक break ले लो 5 minute का.
Okay, sir.
Okay, we'll have a
Yes,
cup of
sir.
tea, all of us, and join back in 5-10 minutes. Today
Yes,
we'll
sir.
take 3 lectures. Okay.
Yes, sir. We can
3
take 4
lectures.
also, sir.
Today we'll take like 3 lectures. Okay.
Because then we have to take a break for the exam, no, sir. So we can take
Yes,
4
yes.
lecture also.
Yeah, take a break now. I will cover section 14. After
Yes, sir.
14 के बाद एक break लेंगे. Then 15,
Yes, sir.
16 लेता हूँ. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.